Hello.
Good.
Hello.
Who do we, is that Greg? No.
Mike.
Mike, sorry. It was Greg last night. Greg is here, Mike is on the line. Okay, that's great.
Here we go.
Okay. So I believe we have everybody. We may have Councillor Syrett in a little while. So welcome, everyone, to the June 27th joint public hearing. And I open it officially on behalf of the city.
And I will call this meeting of the Lane County Board of Commissioners to order.
I have a note on here that says manager, but maybe you're not introducing this topic. It looks like Terry Harding is introducing this topic. So please take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening and welcome to all of you and to the members of the public who are here to provide public comment in the latest opportunity in an over 5-year process of community planning. The urban growth boundary adoption proposal is in this binder here. A link to these materials was sent to you in your agenda memo. There's also a copy in your offices, and that link on the website, you can navigate to the full record for this item, as well as all of the public testimony that has been submitted to date. So you can review that when you have time. And we will be updating those links with the information after tonight's hearing so that all the testimony is there. And that's all we have.
Okay, and I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Turn it over to, let's see, who's here from Lydia? Ms. McKinney.
Good evening, Board, City Council. Again, Terry has really covered it in terms of what we're here for this evening. We're here to conduct a public hearing. We had a work session with the board 2 weeks ago, I believe that was, with city staff, and we addressed some of the board's questions. We have received some testimony between the time that we prepared your last packet, and we will include all testimony that we've received since we prepared the last packet in the packet we will prepare. We have the Board of County Commissioners tentatively scheduled for deliberations on August 8th. So again, for tonight, we're having a public hearing, and our purpose is to hear from the public on this item. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So I now am officially opening this for public comment. Those wishing to speak during the public hearing must submit a completed request to speak form to the information desk prior to the beginning of the public hearing. When you come to the podium, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward if known. You will have 3 minutes to comment. There are lights on the timer. The red light indicates the end of 3 minutes. Are you?
Do the second reading.
Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped the agenda. You want to go back and do that?
Okay.
Go back and do that.
Do that. So I need to read us into the second reading of the county ordinance. So we have 3 ordinances before us. Second reading of 1345, 1347, and 17-03. So this is going to take about 20 minutes. You all okay with that? I won't. Second reading and public hearing ordinance 1345 in the matter of adopting an ordinance establishing the Eugene urban growth boundary, including an expansion for employment, parks, and schools by amending text and maps in Eugene Springfield Metropolitan Area General Plan, adopting the Envision Eugene Comprehensive Plan for the urbanizable land within the Eugene urban growth boundary, repealing the Eugene Commercial Land Study, amending the Public Facilities and Services Plan, amending the Eugene 2035 Transportation System Plan, amending the Goal 5 Water Resources and Conservation Plan, and amending the Lane County Rural Comprehensive Plan to modify official county plan and zone maps to reflect the expansion of the Eugene urban growth boundary, and Ordinance 1347 in the matter of adopting an ordinance establishing the sufficiency of the Eugene urban growth boundary for purposes of residential land needs by making a text amendment to the Eugene Springfield Metropolitan Area General Plan and amending text and adopting an appendix to the Envision Eugene Comprehensive Plan, and Ordinance 1703 in the matter of amending Lane Code Chapter 10 to reflect adopted amendments to the Eugene Development Code, adding provisions relating to the Clear Lake Overlay Zone by amending sections 10.600-20 and 10.600-25, LC 10.600-20 and 10.600-25, and adopting a savings and severability clause, And for the public watching, if you were to go to the agenda for today and click on view items, you can get the entire text of what I just read and the entire text of the details of the discussion we're going to have this evening. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, sorry about that. And so now I believe we are ready for public testimony. And first up is Pat McGilvery, followed by Janet Calvert.
Excuse me, just a point of order. Commissioner Farr, if you didn't already, you should open your public hearing.
Thank you. And hello, Pat. The public hearing is open. Shouldn't you be with the Bethel School Board tonight?
I should be meeting with your wife from the Bethel School Board, but I'd rather be here tonight. Pat McGilvery, I do live within the city of Eugene. I'm representing Bethel School District. I don't know my ward, but I'm sure it's the best one out there. All right. So I will be brief. I'm Community Relations Director for Bethel School District. It's good to see so many welcoming and familiar faces tonight. Planning for the future, back in 1964, the Bethel School Board at that time began purchasing small parcels of land just west of what is now known as Golden Gardens Park. These were land purchases, not land swaps. I want to make sure we're on the right understanding here. You guys are more used to land swaps at this point. The last purchase of those small pieces of acreage was in 1992, so for 28 years this went on. And over the years, the board managed to accumulate about 80 contiguous acres for a future school site. The city has since grown to the edge of school district property where North Terry now ends. Bethel School District has been a part of the Envision Eugene process since the group's first meeting several years ago because we wanted to continue planning for the future. The district is now asking that only 54 acres, not all 80 acres, but only 54 be included in an expanded UGB. This would be enough to support any type of school, including a high school, and allow us to preserve wetlands, which are also a part of that property. We do not plan to build a school immediately. However, the school district must continue planning for the future, and you're helping us do that. Knowing that our future school site is within an expanded UGB will be significant for Bethel School District, its families, and its students. Thank you for your consideration, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Next up, Janet Calvert, followed by Elizabeth Langston.
My name is Janet Calvert. I live at 1062 Woodside Drive, and this evening I'm speaking on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Lane County. We have sent you testimony previously, and you have, the League has followed this process. We've testified 10 times in the past few years, and on various prospects of the proposed ordinance regarding the urban growth boundary. We urge you to adopt these ordinances now. The city and county do not need to add more years and study to this process. Adoption would establish new baseline urban growth boundary that would allow the Eugene to move forward in addressing critical issues, including neighborhood refinement plans, establishment of urban reserves, and especially issues around the need for affordable housing. We urge you to adopt this plan now so that it will allow Eugene and the county to move to implementation and monitoring of this phase of the urban growth boundary. And welcome to our new city councilor, Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Elizabeth Langston, followed by Brent McLean.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Langston. I live in Eugene. I first came to Eugene 33 years ago to interview for a job, and although I ended up in Seattle, I was so impressed by the beauty of Eugene that I never forgot it. Once my husband Jim retired, all he ever heard was Eugene, Eugene, Eugene. So 3 years ago, I finally made it back, and now Jim and I call it home. I am concerned about the urban growth boundary and its emphasis on development density within the Eugene city limits. On the urban growth boundary adoption fact sheet, the UBG is described as a line that separates urban uses from rural uses with the aim of protecting farm and forest lands. I believe the forests that need to be protected are the ones located within our city limits. They need to be protected for three main reasons. The first one, urban watershed forestry. Urban and community forestry is the management of urban forests for environmental, community, and economic benefits. An urban watershed forestry approach sets watershed-based goals for managing the forest as a whole rather than forest resources on a site-by-site basis. And I'm running out of time, and so I will hand this out. Beauty, what I see within the city, Eugene city limits are fully filled in forests with the rich dark green beauty of Douglas firs and other conifers. I remember watching television broadcasts of the NCAA and Olympic trial track and field events held at Hayward Field. The backdrop was the beautiful forest areas of Eugene. I remember feeling so proud that I lived in such a special place and thought how many people across the United States would be favorably impressed. Wow, here's a city that has taken the usual. Wow, here's a city that hasn't taken the usual route of cutting its trees down to make way for development. What a unique and lovely place. And recreation. As you know, recreation is important to people who live in and around Eugene. The website Trip Savvy says of Eugene, if you enjoy spending time outdoors, you'll find many opportunities within the city limits. Designated recreation trails network the area. Where Jim and I live, people are constantly going by, walking, jogging and walking their dogs on the way to the Ribbon Trail. The Ribbon Trail is described as a marvelous little path along a densely forested ravine smack in the middle of Eugene that feels of all the world like a remote wilderness. Yet 2 planned unit developments, or PUDs, are being proposed for this area. So anyway, my plea is save and preserve the forested areas of Eugene as they exist today, expand the urban growth boundary more than it is currently planned in order to reach a balance between development needs and forest preservation, enhance the things we love about Eugene by saving them. And thank you.
Thank you. Brent McLean, followed by Sue Pritchard.
Good evening. My name is Brent McLean. I live at 3355 North Delta Highway here in Eugene, northeast neighbors. So, dear city councilors and county commissioners, thank you for your time. I could never spend my nights and days and weekends like you do. I appreciate it. After 10 years of hard work, both from the ECLA Advisory Committee and Envision Eugene process, we're finally where we were 10 years ago. All of us realizing that the city is far out of compliance with state land use laws that require a 20-year inventory of residential, commercial, and industrial lands. I own a company called Eugene Industrial Real Estate. I work in the trenches every day from the people that are out there that are in the need of this land. Every day. Please expand this UGB as soon as possible. Today, if someone calls our office looking for 2 to 5 acres of industrial land, it's not there. We don't have it. Commercial land, you can go to Florence and get more commercial land there than you can in the city of Eugene. We need this expansion today. Without this inventory in the city, it will cause what's been happening for decades to keep going on. Businesses will simply take the path of least resistance, which forces them to other outlying communities, like Cresswell, Cottage Grove, Coburg, or Junction City. In fact, all of those small cities have more commercial land inventory, period, than we do. You can all do the right thing soon enough, which is to support the UGB expansion today. Eugene has missed out on a lot of opportunities since the economy turned around in 2014, and my hope is they don't miss the rest of this expansion period. The only thing you could do to make it better is include an urban reserve area to protect these other cities, these smaller cities that are moving towards us faster than we can stop them. Do not delay this vote another day if necessary. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Sue Pritchard, followed by Bill Aspegren.
Good evening. Thank you very much. My name is Sue Pritchard, and I live at 2671 Emerald Street. I've been involved as a citizen volunteer on the topic of urban infill and urban growth boundary for the past 10 years, and then I had a 30-year career as a commercial real estate broker, so I have some understanding of land use issues. I served as co-chair for the Infill Compatibility Standards Task Force, which was formed to address neighborhood concerns about the negative impacts of infill in our neighborhoods. I'm aware of the significant challenges in accommodating population growth while preserving our appealing neighborhoods and our beautiful natural environment. I served as co-chair of the Technical Resource Group, which was a broad-based group of citizen volunteers who spent hundreds of hours verifying the data and assumptions made by staff while forming the recommendations that are before you tonight. I tell you these things to hopefully add some credibility to my opinions. This has been an exceptionally well-planned and well-executed public process. The city staff has done an outstanding job of public engagement. Every methodology for collecting and integrating public comment was used, and the feedback was valued, respected, and helped to inform the final recommendations. Nothing was overlooked in trying to engage Eugene's citizens in this process. This task of modifying our urban growth boundary is loaded with conflicting values, as you know, a conflict that can best be described as we don't want to grow out, but we also don't want to be more dense. There are no easy answers for how to reconcile these conflicting values, but I believe that the recommendations before you have been the very best efforts to make the best reasonable decisions. Therefore, I strongly urge you to adopt this package as soon as possible so that we can get to the next important task. To get to this point, assumptions have been made because we are planning for an unknown future. Now we must develop a robust monitoring system that will record the actual data that happens. How many people really do move here? How many households are there? How are they composed? What kinds of housing do people actually buy or rent? And how much development and redevelopment actually does occur? We don't know for sure. This monitoring system is a key element in how we plan for the future and will allow us to shift course and change policies if we need to in order to preserve the community values of livability. I hope you will move forward and adopt this package. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Aspegren, followed by Bill Close.
Hi, I'm Bill Aspegren. I live in Eugene. I'm in Ward 3, Ellen Zelinka's ward, and I'll give you a little different approach to it here. If you've read what I submitted for the hearing, this hearing, and the Joint Planning Commission hearing, you know I believe there's significant flaws in the data and assumptions that are the basis for Ordinance 2. However, I'm aware that the city, as do I, wants to see the proposed plan move to the next level. People have proposed moving the plan along and later updating it based on the monitoring that will occur after acceptance. This is estimated to take about 3 years. I think there's some serious pitfalls to this. Part of the proposal asks to modify the minimum density for R2 zones because there's a 1,600 deficit in needed multifamily housing. Based on Lloyd Hellickson's research and analysis, which has been submitted, the proposed projections are significantly underestimated, and there is no multifamily deficit. Don't discount Lloyd's information. It's logical, detailed, and complete. Staff has been aware of these concerns for over 2 years and has chosen to ignore them. Do not endorse the R2 changes. This decision will have no impact during the time it takes to update the current plan. Another pitfall. Based on the problems that have been identified with the data and assumptions, waiting 3 or more years to generate a new plan is just unacceptable. The council needs better information when it is asked to make policy and land use decisions. Another one. Part of the updating process will consider making changes to objective code and establishing urban reserves. These are both good things to do. These appear, though, to be complex processes and will push monitoring and updating well beyond 3 years. A new 20-year plan may require changes to the UGB, after which urban reserves can be considered. Excuse me. Bottom line, Ordinance 2 could be approved without the R2 changes, but with a condition that within a year and a half, and I think that's plenty of time to year and a half, an update plan must be ready for approval. Council should encourage the staff to work with the research Lloyd has done as a starting point. Isn't the do-all end-all, but as a starting point for the monitoring and updating of the plan. Postpone, and at the same time, postpone the work on objective code and urban reserves until after an updated plan is approved. I think it's necessary that the council has good information, and I think it can be better than what's in the plan. I would say go ahead and approve it, but have some conditions with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Close, followed by Ed McMahon.
Mayor Vinnis, I have the pleasure of saying a few words tonight on behalf of 3 separate clients, and your front door staff was kind enough to not collate, to not put all 3 of those clients together because I only brought 1 support code. Who am I speaking on behalf of first there? It's right there on the form.
Oh, sorry. You are, gotcha. You are speaking on behalf of, it looks like Jerry's.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Got it. Now I understand what you're talking about. Okay.
Chairman Farr, Mayor Vinnis, councilors, commissioners, you have a letter in the record dated June 12th from me on behalf of Jerry's. Attached to that letter is a very thoughtful study, short and pithy, from JRH Engineering, Transportation Engineering, Jim Hanks, who you all know. The issue for Jerry's is that the proposed new industrial area behind Jerry's and extending north to the airport proposes to have several major access points to serve it. Clear Lake, Airport Road, also Theona Drive. Now, Theona Drive is the northern access point to Jerry's off Highway 99. It's short, it's skinny, but under the proposed amendment, it's going to become robust and long. It's going to become a collector. And the point of the transportation study is to note that as that industrial area develops and the traffic picks up on Theona, the warrants aren't going to be met for a signal at Theona Drive and Highway 99. And that's not going to work because Theona Drive is too close to Beltline. That's the big picture. It's already a problematic intersection. It's working, but it's problematic. ODOT knows it's problematic. And it's not a good idea to make it a collector. And that's the gist of our proposal. It can be left the way it is with a little amendment to your plan, and the other major existing access points can serve that new industrial area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Ed McMahon, followed by Bill Close for his next client.
Good evening, commissioners, mayor, councilors. I'm Ed McMahon. I'm the executive director of the Home Builders Association of Lane County, located at 1065 River Road, Eugene. Our primary objective is to get Eugene's needed housing code cleaned up. We've been working toward this objective since the early 1990s. We've been successful cleaning up some of the parts of the code, but not at the local level, mainly through remands from LUBA. The lack of follow-through with the hybrid option that was approved by the City Council in July of 2015 has led us to conclude that the needed housing code will not be cleaned up at the local level. We believe the appeal to DLCD is the appropriate action to finally accomplish this objective. And that's why we are requesting you combine the 2 ordinances into one. It's very important to have one ordinance that combines jobs, parks, and schools with single family. The single family segment does not have an urban growth boundary expansion, and that significantly changes the procedure for the appeal that we plan to make. If everything is combined into one ordinance, we had the ability to go before DLCD to present our needed housing arguments. If the ordinance remains separated, we will not be able to present our argument to DLCD, but we'll have to go directly to LUBA, missing an important step in the process. City staff has stated that the reason to separate the ordinances was because they knew single family was going to be appealed. Excuse me. And they didn't want to hold up jobs, parks, and schools. Well, it's become obvious that jobs is going to be appealed as well. Therefore, there's no longer a reason for 2 ordinances. We would also appreciate any encouragement to get the city to begin work on urban reserves immediately, as promised in the July 15th work session. $750,000 was approved by the City Council to assure that this work would begin immediately and as the highest priority. The monitoring process also needs to begin now. Information from 2012 to current day should be underway now. Let's quit kicking the can down the road. And since I brought kicking can down the road up, We're also very important to learn that another important feature that we were expecting to be part of the Envision Eugene package has been delayed. The Metro plan will not be site-specific until a later date. Very disappointing. In conclusion, even though the Eugene package is riddled with flaws, the package needs to proceed to the state level so we can begin our appeal process. We look forward to a vigorous discussion and want to thank all of you for your service to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Bill Close, speaking on behalf of HBA.
Members of the governing bodies, it's great to be back. And it's good that I'm following Ed McMahon. We all know that Eugene is in the midst of an acute housing crisis in terms of both affordability and availability. As Ed has mentioned, that home builders over the last 8 or 10 years of the vision process has been pressing for several major changes. They really aren't getting any of those out of this process so far. The City Council is primarily in charge of setting policy that determines whether housing is affordable and whether it's available. There's no state law that sets a certain benchmark that the city has to meet in terms of affordability or availability. It's really up to the City Council to make the code more or less restrictive. It's an ultimate policy choice for the City Council. So what can the home builders do in a situation like this? We can really nibble around at the edges. What we can do is grab a few pieces of law from state statutes the city regulations have to comply with, and we can compare the city regulations with the state law and ask the question, does it conform? And that's really what we've done here. None of the changes we're requesting solve the affordability or availability issue, but if all the changes the home builders were advocating were made, it would help a little bit around the edges. It would be a little step forward. So those are the changes that we've been advocating for the last half dozen years or more. There's nothing new in the materials I've presented to the council and the board in the last couple of weeks. I've just summarized what changes the home builders have been advocating for the last more than half decade. There's a mountain of material we've put in the record. I've summarized it in a 2-page table. Keep it simple for myself, make sure I'm organized. And then I've backed up that table with a really exciting 20-page memo that discusses each item in the table. There are 21 items in the table. Those are 21 changes that we think the city needs to make to its code in order to be in compliance with state law. Now, they made one of them. They made one of them in December. It was a change to an obvious flaw. As of 2 days ago, there were 20 items in my table. And this morning we ran across I added another one because we ran across another wrinkle in the code that we discovered talking to staff that makes life difficult for building housing in Eugene. So that is the big picture without getting into any of those items. We've tried to summarize it in coherent terms. Thank you very much for your consideration. I know it's in your discretion to keep the record open or not. We'd appreciate a little bit of time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Reeder, followed by Bill Kluse again.
Good evening, governing bodies. My name is Mike Reeder, 800 Willamette Street, Suite 800. I work for the law firm Arnold Gallagher here in Eugene. I represent Joe Gagne III, the Gagne family partners who own the Dag Trust Partnership property in West Eugene in the Curl Road area. I've been before the City Council on numerous occasions, as well as the planning commissions. I have a letter for staff to distribute. My clients own 205 acres of property outside and adjacent to the current urban growth boundary, as well as 76 acres of property that's located within the city limits and the urban growth boundary. My client has been involved in the Envision Eugene process since 2012, and most recently I testified before the Planning Commission on the March 27th public hearing in front of the Joint Planning Commissions. The property is called the Willow Creek Hills Expansion Area, and we have been working with staff on master planning this particular area with the hopes that one day it could be brought into the urban growth boundary. I'm here today to lend support to the adoption of the current urban growth boundary package, which, as you know, does not include an expansion for residential at this time. We have three requests. One is that you adopt the urban growth boundary package as it's been presented. Number two, that you continue on the path of adopting an urban reserves planning program, and that you consider the Willow Creek Hills property in a future expansion of the urban growth boundary once the urban reserve property has been, or urban reserve process has been completed. As we all know, affordability is an acute problem. Affordability, I do not believe, will be impacted with this current urban growth boundary expansion that does not include residential, because if the city of Eugene were to change its assumptions right now, if we were able to snap our fingers and change those assumptions and need an expansion for an urban growth boundary expansion for residential, we would necessarily be boxed into bringing in rural residential or exception property on the fringes of the current urban growth boundary. Those rural residential properties are not the best place to expand the urban growth boundary. It's expensive, it's difficult, most of the folks don't want it. However, if you do urban reserve planning and you do it correctly, you can bring in property that has marginal benefits for farm and forest, because, for example, my client's property is surrounded by rural residential as well as the city, so it doesn't make sense for farming and forest. So I encourage you to adopt this current urban growth boundary package and look forward to working on the urban reserve package in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Close. I don't know who you're representing in this case.
It better be Eugene Santa Gravel.
There we go. Doesn't say
Thank you, Councilors and Mayor. I'm starting to become very comfortable here tonight. You have in your recently arrived materials a short letter from me dated June 22nd on behalf of Eugene Santa Gravel. This relates to a 32-acre chunk of ground, which is north of Beltline, west of the county buildings, running through to the river. It is owned by Eugene Santa Gravel. It's worked over Santa Gravel land that is now being reclaimed with the blessing of the state under an approved reclamation plan. It needs to be brought into the urban growth boundary as employment land before any land out on Highway 99 on the way to the airport. And the reason is, from the standpoint of the state priorities, that is the pecking order set out in ORS 197-296 for bringing land in the urban growth boundary, and it's a very rigid pecking order. Under that pecking order, this property has to come in before any agricultural land, for the reason that this land qualifies as non-resource land in the meaning of that statute. Now it's planned and zoned Santa Gravel, but it's non-resource for purposes of the pecking order. We initially made this pitch in great and glorious detail to the city staff in February of 2014. We've been working at it ever since then. We've made really no progress. The city staff's been pretty defended against picking this land first. The reasons for not picking this land have evolved over time. The current reason is that because it has a sand and gravel designation, the city can't grab it until the county changes its sand and gravel designation, pulls it off there, and plan designates it something else. There's nothing else to plan designate it. I think the city staff thinks that the county should plan designate it non-resource, and then the city could grab it. Well, that's a 2-year process, as you commissioners know. It's a $25,000 process, as you commissioners know, if everybody cooperates, and it's completely unnecessary. This property needs to be first in the pecking order. There is no element of state law that requires the sand and gravel designation to be taken off this property before it qualifies for to come in before the agricultural land out near the airport. So that's the short of it. I think the plus side of all this, this may have sounded a little bit negative so far, but when you look at this property on the air photos that we provided for you, you can see that it is a linchpin, could be a linchpin for the city in grabbing all that river frontage, starting at Beltline and moving all the way north through this property, all the way across along the golf course to the urban growth boundary. And I think the city staff for decades has looked forward to grabbing that for pedestrian access, bikeways, and so on. It's possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ferris Cassell, followed by Brittany Quick-Warner.
Hi, thank you. My name is Ferris Cassell. I live at 2843 Capitol Drive in Eugene. I'm here representing the Capitol Hill PUD Neighborhood Response Committee, which has been endorsed by both Fairmont Neighbors and Laurel Hill Valley neighborhood groups. We have two issues which we think are relevant to Envision Eugene. The first, it concerns the needed housing track for development approval. The intent of that approval track has been established with to help the city solve some very real problems of affordability and availability. However, we are concerned that developers have begun using this track as a way to evade established city codes. So we propose that the city clarify the codes so that this cannot happen, that the needed housing track can't be used to evade the very real and important codes already established, as for instance the South Hills study. The second issue that we want to bring up is that proposals by the city that neighbors near developments may be financially responsible for public road improvements necessitated by the increases in traffic triggered only by the development. We believe this, again, is a perversion of the city codes that provide for the safety and efficacy of our streets. We believe that where the development triggers the problems, that the developer, and in partnership with the city, should pay for the solutions to those problems. That the developers are profiting from the development. Why should the neighbors who don't profit and are sometimes harmed in their standard of living be forced to pay for the developments that are outside the boundaries of the developer, of the PUDs? Thank you.
Thank you. Brittany Quick-Warner, followed by Larry Banks.
Good evening, Mayor, City Councilors, County Commissioners. Thank you for your time tonight and for hearing everyone. My name is Brittany Quick-Warner. I live in Ward 8. I am the interim CEO of the Eugene Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here to support the urban growth boundary packages that are in front of you. Nearly 20 years ago, the Chamber contracted a study to identify whether our community had adequate inventory of industrial lands necessary for business recruitment and expansion, and found that ultimately we did not. That was back in 1999. Since then, we have been intimately engaged in the process. Myself, our late CEO, my predecessor sitting on the technical resource group, our chamber members doing a lot of volunteer work to really analyze and to understand this process and to come to a really educated position on where we are now. In that work, we think it's ultimately really important that we expand for the jobs, parks, and schools, and we highly encourage you to do that. And we hope that you will keep the ordinances separate. We are sympathetic to the concerns of the home builders, and we've met time and time again with the city staff. We've heard from the folks who have concerns about the two ordinances. We too believe that the population numbers are faulty at this point, but unfortunately, we are where we are, and we believe that without moving this process forward, we can't actually get to the urban reserve process that will in the end get us better lands for us to expand our housing onto. So we believe that these ordinances are as they should be and passed into separate ordinances, and we strongly encourage you to do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Larry Banks, followed by Carleen Riley.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors, commissioners. My name is Larry Banks, and I'm in Ward 1. And so I'm here tonight on behalf of the Local Government Affairs Committee of the Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce, and I didn't know I'd have the pleasure of following Brittany, so I won't repeat a lot of what she said, but our group feels very strongly that we've worked hard for many years to grapple with this decision. The Chamber obviously is very interested in the ability to create more jobs. We're also very interested in the ability to create much more needed housing and affordability of housing. But we do recognize that one is ready to go and the other needs the first to move forward. The UGB adoption is ready to go and has been an extreme priority for us. And then that'll enable us to move forward with greater detailed discussions and planning about the reserves for housing. We recognize that the process has gone far beyond legal requirements for assessment with such robust community engagement. And we think it's long past time to make the call to move forward with that. I guess I'll just sort of skip over the rest of the prepared text. And sort of on a personal note, I was a member of the community resource group that met years ago, and kind of time heals all wounds, if you will, but just leave you with 7 years, right? It's been 7 years of dialogue, discussion, community investment, staff time. We've heard about every different wrinkle that there is. I think it's time to move forward. Monitor our progress, take seriously the noted impediments that have been raised to actually developing land for jobs and enabling land for housing. But we think it's time to move forward, and we think that 2 packages is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Carleen Riley.
Good evening, commissioners, councilor members, and I would be in Ward 7 if I were annexed. I'm Carleen Riley, live in beautiful River Road, the River and Garden District. Let's put on our can-do gloves and wrap up Envision Eugene. We've heard all the concepts and pillars. We've said all the words. We've given 7 years of feedback and technical information. We've argued everything, pro and con, time and again. If Obamacare was written in about 2 years and Trump Care was written in about 6 months, 7 years seems to be quite long enough for us to plan and approve Envision Eugene. Nothing is going to be perfect. This is quite sufficient to give us clear guidance to neighbors, neighborhoods, businesses, park planners, public works, LTD, schools, our whole community, a structure that will take us into the 21st century. We are anxious to put on our can-do gloves and get to work on our vision for Eugene. The community has been waiting to live into today and embrace our tomorrows with creativity and enjoyment. We can do this. Thank you.
Thank you. And that is the end of the testimony for today. And now is the time when I would typically close the hearing and close the public record. It is important that the city and county base their decisions on the same public record. So before I close the public hearing and record for the city, is there an alternative motion from either body?
Commissioner Bozievich.
Thank you. I heard a request from one of the speakers to hold the record open for a short period of time on behalf of the home builders. And we also had an anonymous email asking to have the record held open also. So, there was a request to hold the record open. I just want to make sure we're aware of that.
Thank you, Commissioner Bozievich.
So do you have a proposal for how long you want to keep that open? What are our options?
Your
That's long
option,
enough.
it's open to you. Generally, 7 days is the usual increment, and my understanding when Mr. Close says a small period of time, that generally means he's probably thinking about 7 days.
Okay.
The seventh day from today, though, happens to be the 4th, I believe. So maybe Wednesday the 5th at 5 o'clock would be a good option. It's up to you.
And does that present any other complications in any way? No. Okay. So the proposal is to keep it open till the 5th?
To clarify, at least for the board members, what we're talking about is it 7 days or 8 days, I guess, as it is for any sort of addition, rather than the typical thing we get with a quasi-judicial where you have 7 days in response period and all that. This is just 7 days, period.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Commissioner Bozievich, do you have a motion?
Sure. I'd like to move to close the public hearing but hold the record open until 5 p.m. July 5th.
Board members, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Discussion to the motion. I see none among Board of County Commissioners. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. The record will be held open until July 5th, 5 p.m.
And we also have.
Mayor, can I be in the queue?
Yes, just a minute. You may. Do we also have to pass this as council?
Our recommendation is that the council do the same thing that the county.
Right. Okay. Can I have a motion to keep the record open?
Mayor, can I be in the queue?
Yes, you may in just a minute. Your
Motion to hold the record open for 7 days until.
That's what I was going to do. Okay.
July 5th at 5 p.m.
So, I'm sorry, you said till July
second
5th
is
at
Mike.
5 o'clock.
Or we could have Chris seconded. He's good.
No, let Mike do it.
Mike, do you wish to second that motion?
Sure, absolutely. Why
Thank
not?
you.
Let's do that.
Thank you. Any discussion about that? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And Mike?
Yep.
8 in favor. Okay, thank you. There we are. So now there's an opportunity for discussion, and I know I have Councilor Clark in the queue.
Madam Mayor, I was asking to be in the queue in order to make the motion, so I'm done now. Thank you.
So you're done. Okay.
Madam Mayor, if I may ask a question of council. Mr. Clark, with the record being open until July 5th, can you give us a brief rundown on what our calendar would be, what our options are?
No, I think actually Ms. McKinney can probably give you a better idea of the calendar.
Thank you. We are scheduled for the board to have to have deliberations if you choose on August 8th. That will allow the third reading, thank you, third reading and deliberations. That will allow the city of Eugene, I understand that they're scheduled in July before that so that they can have their discussion before the board meets again.
So the answer is holding the record open does not alter our schedule at all, other than receiving more testimony.
That is correct, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So any discussion by council?
To the board, discussion to the process?
Okay, then I believe we are finished. The council meeting is closed.
No, I'm not done yet. The Board of County Commissioners meeting is.